All right, so record should be going now. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so basically, just kind of want to talk about a little bit of the history of Capital Audio Fest and kind of what we're expecting this year, and uh, a little bit of that. So, kind of start. How did you get started in doing a show like this?
Well, interesting story, but I was over at a friend's house and we had a group of audio files there. And we were having a few beverages and a cigar or two, and we're talking about audio stuff as audio guys do. And somebody said, "Hey, we haven't had an audio show in DC since the '80s," and and we all said, "Hey, let's do it." And and ends up being that I went ahead and did it. And I started the show approximately, well, I think 11 years ago, and it started off as a 12-room event in a historic building in downtown Rockville, Maryland, and it's been going on ever since. And really, I kind of did it on my own. It was very spontaneous, and I didn't know anybody in the industry. I'm just purely a hobbyist.
Yeah, I mean that's quite the growth from starting off 12 rooms to what is it this year? 88
Right.
rooms.
So now we've got 92 rooms, 92 rooms, and I actually shut down the show early. I probably could have been closer to 100, but let me get rid of that. But there's so many things I had to take care of, like printing and program signage, etc. I just had to shut it down, and I felt more comfortable ending it at 92 rooms and going from there. It's a lot of work, trust me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I've never tried to put anything on of this scale, especially. I'm sure you have help now compared to 11 years ago, but even still, I guess a lot of it's kind of volunteer work and friends in the industry that kind of help out.
Happy to have my both my niece and my nephew help with online stuff like managing the website and also doing a lot of documentation. I mean, we have approximately 400 name badges we have to print out. Then I have Christina Ewan and her daughter Ace that help us with all the creation of the program. This year, I think we're at a 68-page program. And then we have all kinds of signage, from directional signage to who's in what room and what number, etc. So I don't have any employees, but I have several people that help. And then, of course, there's the volunteers. Uh, I belong to two local audio groups, the DC Hi-Fi group and also the DC Home Theater Hi-Fi or Home Theater Audiophile group. And they're primarily an online group, but both of them have large memberships, and they come to the show and help out immensely. They do a fantastic job.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, with something of the scale of what Capital Audio Fest is now, I mean, you compare it to like something like Axpona, and you look at how many people they have to put
Right,
on that show. Capital Audio Fest is massive as well, so it takes an army, and I'm sure even just with like you said, printing things,
right.
getting rooms numbers set up and badges and stuff like that. I mean, it takes some people all year to prepare for the next one starting at the end of the one
Right,
that just happened,
right,
and
right.
so I mean that's awesome to have the volunteers and in the the family and friends to help out and put on such an excellent show. I mean, last year was our first year there because I started Hi-Fi Chicken pretty much right before the pandemic hit, so all the shows
Right,
were shut
right,
down and
right,
we couldn't go to anything for
right.
almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So last year was our first Capital Audio Fest, and I mean I had a great time, and both my wife and I are excited to come back this year. and just see everything. Are
Well,
there
that
any?
that was a relatively small show. I mean, uh, if because we did miss 1 year due to COVID, and then last year we almost didn't do it, but I was financially obligated or contractually obligated to the hotel. I mean, it was a fine line when you read the contract. If there was not, if the government didn't shut down, if the government shut down mass gatherings, then we event. But the state of Maryland opened up at that point in time, so therefore we went ahead. And luckily, we were really well attended. Last year, even with, I think we had 52 or 54 rooms, we still had nearly 2,500 attendees. This year, 92 rooms, we're expecting in the 4,000 attendee range.
Yeah. Are there any new brands this year that haven't attended before that you know of?
Uh, I wish I had my list in front of me, but but I know since I'm also associated with the Pacific Audio Fest in Seattle. A couple guys came from there, and one being Songer Audio, Ken Songer. He builds we'll call it a wideband or a full range field coil driver and speaker coming from the west side, from the west coast. Then there's still, like for example, MoFi's always been here on occasion, but they've never had a room. Now MoFi is coming; they've got a couple of rooms. Another company who's moving from the west coast to the east coast, Alma Audio. So they have a large presence of 5 rooms. Then also Bruce Bolts of let's see, AV Fidelity. They're coming, and they've got 4 rooms.
Oh,
And
cool.
so there's several people coming that have a huge presence, and then they just don't come on their own. They fill it with lots of big name brands, from Raid-Ho to Y to who knows whoever they're going to bring. But we just started uploading all the different brands that they're going to bring.
Right. Yeah. I
Different
mean,
cabling, amplifiers, turntables, speakers, you name it.
yeah. I mean, especially because very few brands kind of cover the whole gamut of equipment.
Oh,
Yeah, they got to partner with at least a couple others, to
sure,
get their room set up for sure. So, I mean,
sure,
that's exciting because I think there's definitely growth in the industry with new companies, and
right.
innovating and stuff of that nature. So it's exciting to see them and get new companies get exposure and kind of breed some competition into some companies that are a little stale, so to speak. They kind of been doing the
Right,
same
right,
thing.
right,
So
right, and especially, um, I mean, you think that there's no other way to recreate uh, an analog or a digital component, but man, digital components are changing on a daily basis. DACs are changing. I mean, I wouldn't have believed that somebody's coming with a very pricey CD player, and then all these DACs. The technology keeps changing, and streaming is almost the way to go. Uh, and then also analog, now going into an optical analog. Still going with other methods of analog with step up transformers, tubes versus transistors versus moving coil, moving magnet, and they continue to improve on a yearly basis. Great new phono stages, great new tube amps. A company from Mexico is coming, Margulis Audio. So they're from Mexico City. They were also at the Pacific Audio Fest. Uh, so there's big companies coming that have not had a presence on the East Coast.
awesome. Yeah, I mean that's great to hear. Because a lot of people out east don't make it out west, for
Right.
shows and
And
whatnot.
vice versa.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which actually kind of leads me into another question: is do you have any intentions in the future to do another show, maybe Central U.S. or keep it kind of east and west, at least as far as you know right now. Obviously, that could be very far off.
Well, yeah, that's a tough question, but I mean, believe it or not, running or being well, completely running this show and then being associated with the West Coast, it's a lot of work, and it's difficult since there is a show in Florida. You still have Exponent in Chicago. Who knows what's going on in Southern California? Those guys are still duking it out between the two of them, and who knows when that's going to end. We have a show in Toronto, and then there's a small show in New York that seems to never materialize. But people ask me, but I can't really say yet. We're looking into different things, but I really can't divulge what may happen in the next year or two.
Oh,
We're looking around. I can tell you that.
fair enough. I accept that 100%. Because
It kind of goes with the question, what's your favorite speaker? I can't say that. I can't. I have to be pretty neutral.
right, yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely get that.
Right.
So, plus, I don't know if I could even pick one, anyways, if I did have an answer.
I know.
you
I
know,
mean, audience like food. I mean, one day you want it spicy, the next day you want it creamy, or this day you want it. It depends. Depends how you want it. Each day is different.
yeah, I know one of the questions that we get and that I've answered in many of the groups is, what's the best fill in the blank? And it's like there's no answer to that.
No,
There's a
no,
there's a quote unquote most expensive that some people may consider the best because of price, but like
right.
ultimately it's like, what's the best speaker? Well, I don't know. What are you connecting it to? What's your room look like? What size is it?
There you go.
What sound do you like? What the best speaker is for me could be
Right,
completely different than to you.
right.
And
Exactly.
and like you said, for food or for everything, it's all subjective. It's what's the best is almost unanswerable.
Right. You have to, and a lot of people don't trust their ears. Uh, I mean, if you like it, you like it. I mean, I talked to a friend of mine today who is not an audiophile, but he has a nice system, and he's like, I know it's a crappy system, but I just like having music on. I'm not a big, I don't care about the detail, etc. And he just loves music, and he plays his CDs and his records, etc. But he has it on all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's all that matters at the end of the day. It's if you get enjoyment from it, it doesn't matter if you spent $50 or $50,000. If you're sitting there and you're happy,
I agree.
you're
I
happy.
agree. I agree.
You know.
And that's kind of how the Capital Audiofest started. Was me being I am an audiophile, and I do mix new and vintage, and and I keep mixing it around because some vintage gear sounds fantastic, especially some of the vintage tube equipment. So I mean, I've had different amps that I probably should have never sold because they sounded fantastic for what they were, and especially vintage and some vintage speakers way back 60s, 50s, even 40s. Some speakers are sound pretty darn good,
Yeah.
and you just got to go in with an open mind and listen to it. I mean, quad ESL 57s are an amazing speaker when they're up to par. So, I mean, I like all audio.
Yeah, and that's kind of the approach I take really with reviews. Ultimately, is like I've gotten criticism for, well, you don't really have a negative review of anything. I'm like, well, the reason is because everything is made for somebody.
Correct.
At the end of the day, is it a bad product, or is it just a product for somebody else?
Right.
Because
Right.
the thing is, I've yet to receive a product from any company that has just been outright bad.
Right. Yeah.
I've had stuff that is better than other things, and it comes down to, is okay, is this a good value proposition ultimately?
Uh-huh.
And the thing is I've listened to $50,000 DACs and $100 DACs, and they're
Right.
and the thing is, for $100, it's a good DAC. For
Yeah.
$50,000, it's a good DAC.
Yeah.
They're not comparable, but they're
No.
both perfectly fine products for their price point and their target audience.
Correct.
And that's kind of the approach I take, is just simply as, you know, keeping an open mind and just kind of trying to gear it more towards maybe who does this fit instead of is this simply good or bad, you know?
That's unique in the industry, I'd say. What you're doing is unique in the industry because a lot of people want to define their audience or define where it's going. Uh, and there's not too many publications that just write generic language and try not to dictate who's going to like it and who's not going to like it. So I do appreciate how you say things.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the reason you started Capital Audio Fest kind of aligns why I started Hi-Fi Chicken was, I was sitting there listening to my music and reading a copy of a magazine. I won't mention who, and I was just thinking, you know, I was like, I think I could do better, you know. I
Uh-huh.
and I was like, and I enjoy writing about my hobbies. So I hopped on GoDaddy, registered the domain Hi-Fi Chicken. Of course, it's named after this little green guy up here.
Yeah.
Who's present in all of my reviews, because I mean, we sit here and listen to music every single night together, so he's as much a part of this as I am.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Which is where the name comes from. But it just was simply, how can I bring my hobby kind of to everyone without excluding anyone or
Right.
being judgmental where it doesn't make any sense to be, if that makes
Sure.
sense. And just kind of sharing my hobby. If it never makes a penny, I'm fine with that. If it makes a ton of money, I'm fine with that. I do it for
Yeah.
the
Right.
enjoyment, and that's pretty much it for me. So
I agree. And then also I incorporate in a little bit of DIY as well. And since I belong to these two groups, the DC Hi-Fi group, we have people in the group such as we'll say David Burning, uh, who is the chief designer for linear tube audio. He designs all the circuits, but he doesn't build them anymore. So he uh, and then LTA provides a product and do the manufacturing of their preamps, amps, phono stages, etc. And having David in, some of these guys who are far more intelligent than I am come over to my house and make suggestions, and then slip in their own DIY pieces of electronics and set my system on its ear. It's like, wow, that was amazing. And I mean, I take it as an approach that, hey, if it's going to sound better, I'm open minded.
yeah,
And David Burning, if him, he up until a few years ago didn't own a car, and he would ride his bike over with his output transformerless amplifier in a backpack, and he'd ride his bike over and just bring it over, put the tubes in, and then set it up. We'd hook it up to my speakers, and son of a gun, did they sounded fantastic. So good that I said, you got to build me one.
yeah,
And sure enough, and that's what I use to this day.
that's awesome. I love the DIY stuff. When you see it, and there's definitely people in the groups in the industry that don't care for it, and they they don't really get it. It seems
Right.
when guys build their own speakers or amps or what. I think it's cool. I DIY stuff all the time. I haven't gone as far as building speakers or amps. It's a little beyond my knowledge, but I appreciate the people who do, because I
Well,
think it's super cool.
if you got a couple grand around, may want to. I built the Elect kit. It was a 300B single-ended 300B amp by Victor Kung. It's called Elect kit. Built that. It's a great sounding 300B amp, and he has different options for upgradable transformers, etc. That's something to consider. I mean, it gives you a real insight as to how to build something. I'm in the process. I'm thinking about building. Um, I'm trying to create my own little portable recording station, and I'm going to build. There's a couple DIY ribbon and or condenser microphone companies. So I'm going to probably build my own microphones.
That's pretty cool.
So I mean, I'm interested in sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's kind of where it's at for me too. Is sound is just very interesting, and in
Right.
trying things and in
Yes.
learning about it. I mean, it's I don't claim to be any kind of expert because I constantly want to learn new things, you
Sure.
know, and so that's kind of my attitude that I bring to the hobby is I know what I've learned, and I know that that means I have a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, yeah. Lifetime of learning. I agree.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
I'm always interested in new knowledge, whatever somebody can bring. And I've actually looked at the exact kit you were talking about, and it's on my bucket list of things to get and build because I think it would be super cool to have an amp that I at least put together, assembled,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
something to be proud of. So, and then eventually take that
And it sounds good, and
knowledge.
it's got a headphone jack also.
Oh,
It
nice.
sounds good, and it has a headphone jack. So hey,
Very cool. So, if there's anything else you want to add, kind of about Capital Audio Fest and what people can kind of expect this year, there goes Hercules.
there we go.
Probably to go get something to eat.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
yeah.
I'll give you some. I'll give you some generalities. The show is 3 days: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday from 10 to 6, and then afterwards we have live music starting at 7 to 9. Saturday is 10 to 6, and again live music. We have a jazz trio, local amazing guitarist. I'd say in the footsteps of we'll say I think Bill Frisell, and his name is Anthony Pirag, and he's amazing. He'll be there Saturday night, and then Sunday is from 10 to 4, and then the show shuts down. But I want to say that you can access the show by the Washington Metro. It's a light rail for those that don't know the DC area. It's a light rail that goes right behind the hotel. It's the red line, and you get off at the Twinbrook Metro stop. It goes all throughout the DC area and then goes right behind the Hilton Hotel in Rockville. Then, lastly, I would say that parking is probably going to be horrible. Parking is free, but when it's full. And across the street, although it's a busy street, it's called Rockville Pike. Right across the street, diagonally, there is it's called the Congressional Plaza. There's a massive parking lot and several. It's a big shopping center, and also Matchbox Pizza is over there. So I would recommend walking over there and trying to find a space over there. But those are my insights. Also, the Hilton Hotel is fully booked. It's been booked. They're overbooked, and I've heard that a few people have had their online reservations canceled.
Ooh.
Like if you're buying your hotel reservation not through the Hilton, you're at risk. Um, and then also across the street is the Even Hotel. You can check there, but I know they were full. They may have somebody who backs out of the reservation. Might want to try there. It's the Even, Even. About a mile south is the Marriott Conference Center on Marinelli Road. That again is on the red line, so you could either Uber over or it's less than a mile taking the train over. And then lastly, a mile going north in Rockville Center is the Cambria Hotel. So you have some selections, some options around here, but and of course you can Uber or Lyft or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, just for you to know, and then you can always come in. You can buy your tickets online, $20 a day, $30 for the weekend, multi-day, or you can just pay on the premise.
Very cool. Again, I want to say I appreciate it. Having sitting down, talking to us about it, and kind of some other stuff as well. Just in general, get to know
Right,
Gary a little better, and
right.
I'll also say I'm excited. My wife and I are planning an entire trip out to Pacific Audio Fest. We're actually going to go out for an entire week because neither of us have been to the area, so we're actually going to go kind of travel around and then visit the show and kind of turn it into a double vacation, so to speak. So we're excited
That's
to.
a great idea. That's a great idea. And matter of fact, there's a light rail right next to that hotel also.
Oh,
My
cool.
wife and I went downtown, and there was we had a few brew pubs, and you hit all the Pike Place, the tourist places downtown in Seattle. I mean, it's a hip city. I mean, it's got its issues, but it's a
Everywhere
nice
does,
little
right?
place. Everywhere does right now. Everywhere. Hey, but Rockville, Maryland is perfect. No issues.
I wish I could say the same for Canton, Ohio, but
Yeah.
right now, the Football Hall of Fame is kind of taken over the entire city. So,
Right. Right. Right.
but luckily, I live outside the city enough that I'm unaffected. So,
Okay.
but yeah. So, anyways, like I said, I appreciate taking the time to talk to us, and looking forward to less about a week away, a little over a week away, and we'll
Oh
be
yeah.
there. And I'm excited to see everybody and check out some of these new rooms. And it's crazy to think that there's double the rooms this year than there was last year,
Right.
because it
Yeah.
seemed like there were so many last year.
Right.
You know, and we were lucky enough to actually get a room in the Hilton this time.
Sure.
So last time we stayed across the street at the Even Hotel, and I will say it's a nice hotel, but
Yep.
crossing that street was less than ideal
I yeah. Use the crosswalk.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hectic. It's a very heavily trafficked road.
Yeah, it's nice that they have that median there. You can wait for the other direction of traffic.
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous in itself, though.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So, all right. Well, you have a great rest of your evening, and
Okay.
we'll see you in about a week.
All righty. Thanks a bunch.
All
Good
right.
luck. Take care.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye.